of that chorus, because sometimes help can come in different forms. And of course, we're all individuals, and what might help me might not help you in the same way. And that's important to recognize. And there's one such way that we can support and help ourselves, which is something called social prescribing. And I'm delighted now that Hayley, Tammy and myself are joined by Sophie Buckley from PAVS, who's got a little bit of insight to do with social prescribing. Good evening, Sophie.
Hi, Tom. Hi, all.
Hello.
I hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for joining us. Well, as Hayley's just said, I feel like I've been in the same room with you, but I haven't talked with you, and I feel like I'm in the same boat, Sophie. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to have a little chat about what you do. So do you mind giving us a bit of an overview as to who you are and the types of thing you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here. I love the show. So this is a great honour and opportunity. I'm Sophie Buckley. I work for PAVS as the Strengthening Communities Programme Manager for Pembrokeshire. So the Strengthening Communities Programme includes the Pembrokeshire Community Hub, the team of community connectors, and also the work that we do around engagement and influencing in Pembrokeshire, supporting the wider voluntary sector in Pembrokeshire with things like supporting partnership working, collaboration across health and wellbeing organisations. And also we do lots of work supporting the community to be more involved in the development of services and support through co-production and collaboration and engagement.
That sounds like quite a large role there, Sophie, over a sparse rural geographic area, trying to find all those different organisations and trying to help people work together and actually get people to identify that that those things exist and might be able to benefit them. That's quite a role.
Yes, it is. I've got a fantastic team of staff at PAVS who do all of that work that I've just described in a nutshell. There's 16 of us in total, we are out and about in the community, but also working really closely in partnership with colleagues across the voluntary sector, in the local authority, and also with our colleagues in the health board.
Gosh, and Tammy, it sounds actually quite similar to your other hat, your Carers Support West Wales services, trying to identify these services and getting the right people to the right place at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about bringing everyone together. It's about making the connections, and it's about signposting. Sophie has got a very big role. You really have, Sophie.
And we're calling this section social prescribing. So, Sophie, once you've found all these organisations, you find these different communities that are putting things on, what is social prescribing?
So, social prescribing is really an umbrella term that describes a person-centred approach to connecting people to local community assets. So, and by community assets, we mean that includes community groups, interventions and services, which could be delivered online or in person. So from your, your choir groups, your knit and natter groups, or physical activity groups, as well as buildings, land, or even a person within a community could be considered to be a community asset. And social prescribing really is a way of connecting people, whatever age or background, within their community to better manage their health and well-being. So that is the aim of social prescribing, and really to help empower individuals to recognise their own needs and strengths. So it's very much a strengths-based approach and a real solutions-focused approach.
I love that. It feels like something that's getting a lot of a lot of notice in the last couple of years or so since COVID and the obvious isolation that put into people. But it's actually a concept that's been around for many years.
Yes, it is, and there are people, and maybe more so a long time ago, possibly, but we do have communities now where people do feel very connected to their community, and to their hobbies, and they're very lucky to be in that position. But there are many people out there who aren't fortunate enough to be in that position, and actually that can change actually as we go through life. We feel more connected at some times in our lives than we do in other times, and that could be for various reasons. So to be able to have support in the form of social prescribing when maybe people are not feeling as connected as they would like to, and we could help them to achieve that.
Yeah. Hayley, you've been listening in so far, so Sophie's introduction. What's been your interaction with the concept of social prescribing?
So I was introduced to them in 2016, and I became one of the referral routes. So I worked with Llanelli Social Prescribing team for about 18 months. And they were able to refer clients to me. At the time, I don't know if you still do it now, it was for time credits. So it was kind of my charity of the time. So I did the work for time credits, and it actually helped me develop the program further. But I got a little bit caught out because I meant to do 4 at a time. And at one point I had about 18 people on my books at the same time. But to be fair, it's a really good service. I've known them to find like fishing people. I've known them to find lots of different versions of the communities out there, or community resources or assets. I think bikes, going cycling and things like that. I think it's a really good thing for the community, particularly if you're isolated. And now you've got someone to speak to, and now you've got someone who's going to help you find something that'll work for you. And I think that's quite invaluable.
The good old time credits. That concept was great to people giving up their time to assist and to help. So Sophie, the romantic knowledge for those of us that were in social prescribing early on was that you'd go to your doctor and they would write out, they'd have a prescription pad for tablets and they'd have a prescription pad for community interventions. And they're like, what you need is 6 weeks at an art class. There you go. And then you'd be prescribed something in the community. It's not as black and white as that, though, is it?
No. I think it's about the model that we've developed in Pembrokeshire. It's about we've made sure that those with expertise in their particular area work in that area. So we obviously GPs are experts in general practice, but actually there is a place for social prescribing as part of that. In Pembrokeshire, the route for social prescribing, so that a GP wouldn't necessarily know about the breadth of opportunities that there are out there in the community, but they are able to call upon the services of the community connectors to carry out that social prescribing for them. So we have a direct referral route from GPs in Pembrokeshire to straight into the team of community connectors, and that relationship has been built over the last couple of years and longer actually. And yes, there is a process now that is in place and is embedded, and we are building on that partnership all the time with our colleagues in primary care and in GP surgeries. So basically, if a GP has a conversation with a patient and feels that social prescribing might be helpful. With the permission of the patient, they can be passed on, and a community connector can get in touch and then meet up with that person if they would like to. And we always start with a what matters conversation. So it really is about what matters to the individual, and really getting to the heart of what it is they would like to achieve, and then we start from there.
That sounds like a really solid base to make sure that people are getting what matters. But Tammy, you've got a question.
Yes, thanks, Tom. It really does sound like, Sophie, that social prescribing just can lead to a range of like positive health and well-being outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just wondering, is it is social prescribing the same in our neighbouring counties, as in like Carmarthenshire and Ceredigion?
So we do have different ways of delivering social prescribing across our counties and across our regions, and we have differences between the way social prescribing is delivered, even between Wales, England, and Scotland, for example. So yes, there are differences. In Pembrokeshire, social prescribing is delivered by the voluntary sector, so our community connectors are employed by PAVS, and that differs in other counties. So Hayley mentioned that the social prescribers are based in GP surgeries in Carmarthenshire. So and I know that that. So there are different models, but Welsh Government actually launched a national framework for social prescribing, officially launched in October 2023. And that provides us with a framework for best practice. But actually, it does say within there that, there is an understanding that there does need to be, we need to use the assets that we already have within our county to make the right choice for our own county. So it allows those differences, but actually the framework provides us with, the same objectives, best practice, the same outcomes for people, regardless of where they live in Wales.
Yeah. Wales does appear to be a little bit ahead of the curve, doesn't it? You just mentioned that legislation there. There's the Future Generations and Wellbeing Act that's in place too. There's the Future Generations Commissioner that looks at all this, and of course in schools there's the new curriculum that has a big emphasis on well-being and creativity. There seems to be very much a vision that more and more people in Wales are going to be able to identify who they are as individuals and actually get the most out of the assets, as you're calling them, in their local area, to make sure that we can thrive in Wales regardless of who we are. How well is that coming to fruition, would you say, in West Wales through the community connectors and this framework? Do you think there's still capacity for much more to be done?
Yeah, I think we've been on a really positive journey over the last few years in terms of preventions in Pembrokeshire. So, that's really, we think about preventions in terms of, supporting people to, live in Pembrokeshire as for as long as they can, as well as they can, and trying to support people to, prevent getting into ill health, prevent some of small problems becoming larger problems, and we really are, we've been developing the community infrastructure to really be able to support that over several years. The vision for preventions in Pembrokeshire really is that we support our communities to be active, resourceful, connected, sustainable and kind. And that word, strengthening communities is now one of 4 key priorities of the Pembrokeshire Public Services Board. So, we've got the support of our statutory organisations that sit on the PSB. So that includes our local authority, health board, blue light services, national park, PAVS and Plan Ed, etc. So, being able to work in partnership together means that we're able to really make a big difference together. So yeah, that's been a real journey over the last few years, and actually next year will be the 10-year anniversary of our community connectors, our community connector project. So
wow.
we are proud to be as far along on this journey as we are, but there is still so much more to do.
Yeah. And of course, there is no secret. There's massive pressures and potential understaffings and having to ring up your GP at 8 a.m. to try and get an appointment for 3 months and a blue moon next Thursday. The reality is that if these community assets, community groups didn't exist, there are a lot of people that would just be left waiting.
Yeah, absolutely. There is, obviously there is always going to be a need for statutory services and support from our health and care providers. But actually, getting to people earlier in the community and being able to support people when they need it and where they need it is something that we are able to do in the community very well. And our voluntary sector organisations do fantastically well at that, across lots of health and wellbeing services. So yes, we are supporting people early on, but equally, it could be part of I suppose a multifaceted approach, really. People can have support from a number of organisations in both statutory and non-statutory services.
Yeah, because I think that's also a key thing. It's not as if I've made the reference there to the pressures of GP surgeries, the pressures on social services. The budget for the council's been released. Over 50% of the budget goes on social care and social services. This isn't a way of mitigating any of those duties. It's not a way of saying, oh, well, we've prescribed you an art class or going to choir, therefore you don't need social work intervention. But it's a way of trying to maybe reduce the impact it has on those services, and you never know what outcomes you might get from the back of that. Hayley, that integration between that statutory and non-statutory, how would you see social prescribing potentially growing or even becoming even more integrated into those two things?
I think, I don't know if Sophie will agree with this, but I think I've seen how easy it can be to become heavily reliant on social prescribing for GPs to push somebody who they don't, they feel they've done as much as they can. And that can then overwhelm the service, I would imagine. I think there's, for me, thinking about Pembrokeshire, it would be easy to think that it's such a beautiful place, that everybody lives there is happy. But that's not the reality, is it? So having services, and I think the big thing is the awareness of the services, but having those services, whether it is sort of the community connectors or whether it is the NHS, knowing they're available, knowing that you can turn to different places for different things is always a good thing for any kind of mental health and well-being.
Yeah, and just, I'm not sure if I've mentioned them already, but we've got our Pembrokeshire Community Hub, and that's my colleagues Lee, Daniel, Holly and Tim at PAVS. So, that's our unique one-stop shop for advice, support, information, developed during COVID, And we decided that it was really, or the community decided that they really wanted to keep it. So we've been able to do that, and people can call 01437 723 660 to they don't have to go through the GP surgery. They can just give us a call and self-refer to the community connectors through that line. So this is really widely available. People don't have to see a GP in order to access social prescribing in Pembrokeshire, which is quite unique, really, for us.
Lee, of course, the host of the Community Hour here on Pure West Radio on the last Sunday of every month, keeping us up to date and actually putting a voice to those names on the Community Hub website. It's a fantastic resource, and of course, no doubt it'll be coming to an end as the clocks change, but we've been highlighting the different warm rooms. And although that's not necessarily an activity that someone's prescribed to, again, Sophie, it's a place where someone can reduce that isolation by going out and having a cup of tea, torch theatre, watch an independent film, have a chat about it afterwards. The warm rooms have really increased their creativity this time round, which feels great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was 3 winters ago when the cost of living crisis hit, and we did have some funding from Welsh Government in that first winter to be able to run a grant for community groups to apply to set up a warm space, which many of them did. I think at that first winter we had sort of 80, 90 warm spaces that were created, and many of them are still running. Many of them have accessed other grants that PAVS have administered to kind of keep just a little bit of money in to keep going. But they're run by volunteers. Many volunteer hours are spent running those warm spaces. Many of them provide a hot meal or a hot drink or an activity, and just that opportunity for people to go along, have some company, but also access some information and advice as well. They've been a real success, and actually are not just relied upon during the winter, but also during the summer months. Because actually we've just because winter comes to an end doesn't mean that all of a sudden people's bills are any less, especially with obviously the increase in lots of people's bills, at home around sort of energy, and cost of food, those warm spaces have been a real success, just thank you really to the volunteers that run them.
It's a wonderful community, and it's a lovely community space for those that might not feel that going to a sports club or going to the pub is right for them, but they will turn up and have a cup of tea and play a game of Connect 4 with a friend or neighbour. It's a wonderful place and can rejuvenate that connection that we were talking about earlier on in the show. They're the warm rooms. What other examples of some of these activities that people have been coming to the community hub and finding and actually looking after their health and well-being in some of these clubs? What other activities are available on there? I will put in. I know that there's some choirs on there. One in Have a Hub on a Tuesday evening, with the mantra of feel good, do good, for good. That's choirs for good. What other activities are there that people have been like, I think that would do me good, based on that strength-based approach that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there are just so many things going on across the county. We've got over 60 community buildings in Pembrokeshire. So, just imagine all of the groups that are going on every week in those community buildings during the day, some in the evening. It's vast from knit and natter groups to chair yoga. We've got art classes. There are knitting groups, all sorts of things going on. So there really is something for everybody. And that's just, that's community buildings. We've also got all of our sports clubs in the county, again, all voluntary run, and lots of different physical activities. We've also got art groups and art classes that many voluntary organisations run again. And there's just so many out there and the great thing about our community connectors is that so we've got 8 community connectors, including our team leader, and they cover a number of geographical areas across the county. So each community connector knows their area really well. So they will know about a new group that might have only just started and maybe haven't even had a chance to really promote widely yet. They'll know about that group and they'll be able to recommend it or just let somebody know about that. We can even help support people, signpost to support for community transport, for example, and possibly look at connecting people up, because not everybody wants to go along to something on their own for the first time. That can be really difficult. So we can look at ways of overcoming some of those barriers that people find going along to something for the very first time.
Yeah. It's remarkable. And what I know that you probably don't have individual stories, but what are the general health and well-being outcomes that can happen when someone goes to these different types of activities?
Yeah. So social prescribing is considered as being the expectations are that some of the solutions are improved health and well-being of individuals, reducing inequalities, and also kind of mitigating some impacts of some of the things that determine our health, that can negatively determine our health. So but the benefits are really wide ranging. So physical, mental, and social well-being are commonly reported. Also, things like, aspects of healthy lifestyles and behaviours, social engagement, and self-management of long-term conditions is reported as well. So people feeling more able to cope with maybe a long-term condition that they've been living with. Obviously, connecting people to their community can also have a massive impact on people who may be lonely or socially isolated. And we know that people who are lonely or socially isolated are at greater risk of things like heart disease, stroke, and high blood pressure, and even premature death. And are also more likely to experience depression, low self-esteem, sleep problems, and an increased response to stress. So, loneliness and social isolation is really, a massive risk to somebody's, health and health outcomes. So, being able to support somebody to really reduce health in that area and really reduce that can have a massive impact on their lives. We've also found that there is a link between health and well-being and things like employability. So if somebody feels more connected to their community, or they feel more empowered and more confident because they've started to attend a group or an activity that they really enjoy, improves their confidence, they get a chance to network, that can then lead to maybe accessing an opportunity to volunteer, that can then lead potentially to people feeling, more able in other areas of their lives, such as feeling more confident to maybe, try new work or get back to work. So it can have real knock-on effects as well. And we also see, an increased connection to nature. So lots of, there are many kind of social prescribed activities that could include being outdoors. So there are reports of people feeling just much more connected to nature, enjoying the benefits of being outside.
Wow. Like, it's very easy when we talk about health that, you get diagnosed with something, there's a real downward spiral. What you've just described there sounds like such an impressive upward spiral of someone might find themselves in a situation, they give the community hub a try, they go to their connector, I fancy doing a bit of table tennis in Trefgarden, whatever it might be. And from that, they build confidence, they get routine, they start getting these health and wellness benefits, which includes physical changes. You mentioned heart disease and other things going on. And then with that, actually, I might volunteer with the clubhouse. This might lead on to some confidence to apply for a job. And all of a sudden, you've got purpose and you've got an intent. And it's all from doing something that should, he says in inverted commas, just be a bit of fun. But that's the whole point, is that when we're having fun, we're arguably feeling the best we've ever felt.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do I know the community connectors, they do meet people who end up actually, they've got, when we have the What Matters conversation, find out people have just got so much to give, and they've got so many, skills and actually, giving is one of the 5 ways to well-being, and actually sometimes people who are in receipt of a service end up giving back, and actually that can have a massive positive impact on somebody's life as well. We have people who go from, again, receiving a service to becoming a volunteer, and that's really inspirational.
Yeah, and transformative. Tammy, you kind of oversee the carers support West Wales. I imagine that you've got similar kind of anecdotes and stories that have kind of crossed through the website.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a case of just, like you said, I kind of echo what Sophie said. It's about just those connections. Where somebody who has been socially isolated as an unpaid carer has access to a carers group that they didn't know about down the road, how helpful, beneficial it is to their emotional well-being, their mental well-being. And I think anybody listening or listening now or tuning in later, if they ask the question, does social prescribing work? The answer is absolutely yes. And just listening to Sophie and just hearing about all the great work that's happening in Pembrokeshire, the future is so bright for social prescribing here in the county, and it's great to have this highlighted. Just the link working, the connecting the wider community. It really does that. Yeah, like I say, the future's so bright.
Yeah. It really is. And there's 2 things I want to bring up with Hayley that Sophie mentioned. One, nature, because that's literally how we started the show off this evening. And the second one is actually the sports groups. You mentioned your cricket club. I'm a member of Broadhaven Football Club. The grassroots actually is it's a real good hotbed for ensuring these social connections. And the VC Gallery have got their outdoor, their Dig for Victory, being out in nature. They're down in Milford Haven. They do things outdoors as well. Hayley, those 2 things together, they're really important.
Yeah, and I was in Swansea University last week. It could have been this week, actually. I don't know if the time's flying, but last week. And there was a student presenting his research on wild water swimming and the social aspect of it. So It really is, and if you can bring them both together, wonderful. But there seems to be now more opportunities for older people to do sports in terms of walking football. You know, we're about to start walking football now with the club I'm working with. And I think, you know, we all need a little bit of outside, a little bit of nature, a little bit of exercise. And if you can do that together in a group or a team, even better.
Yeah. There's something about organised sports and organised things. For me, I like to be part of a league and a structure. I don't need to win it. I just need to know that there's a purpose. For other people, no, I just want to do it for the fun. And that's what matters conversation so important. Do you want to be someone who's striving to be top of the league, or do you just want to go out and kick a ball and have a good time? And that conversation's so important. Sophie, for those people that want to give, and they're like, well, I've got all these skills, and maybe someone wants to learn how to do some woodwork or something along those lines, or I can set up a knit and natter group in my local community. Can PAVS and the Community Hub support in people setting these clubs up?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, they can contact the Pembrokeshire Community Hub on 01437 723 660. Yeah, so we support community groups, new and established, across Pembrokeshire, with things like governance, funding, development. We can support with kind of promoting their activity. We can support the committee with governance activity, but also we can support with promoting what they do. The Pembrokeshire Community Hub can support with that, and then just making sure that our community connectors know about those new activities, so that they can signpost and introduce people to them when they come across people in that area, or somebody that might be looking for that sort of thing in their lives. Absolutely.
Amazing. And there's a big day coming up shortly for those of us that are interested in community interventions and social prescribing. Social Prescribing Day is coming up. Remind us of that date, Sophie. And is PAVS and Community Hub doing anything in particular that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so Social Prescribing Day is next week on Wednesday, the 19th of March. It's an annual celebration of social prescribing, and it's recognising social prescribing link workers or community connectors, and local community groups who deliver social prescribing activities. So, without our voluntary sector organisations delivering social prescribing activities, we would have nothing to social prescribe to. So it's really important to also recognise our voluntary sector organisations and the support that they need to continue to offer the activities and groups that they do. So it's a really important day. We are hosting a Community Connectors Speed Networking event in Crundale Hall on that day. And that event is for practitioners and volunteers across the county to come together to find out a bit more about social prescribing, but also to connect with others working across our communities, across health and care in Pembrokeshire as well, so that they can work in partnership to support people in Pembrokeshire, because working together is where we always get our best outcomes for people.
Definitely. And if people want to find more information on that, where can they find that?
So they can contact us at the Pembrokeshire Community Hub, and we can direct them then to that event.
Fantastic. Hayley, any last thoughts before we let Sophie head off to bed? It's coming up to 10:30 very shortly.
Yeah, I do think from the outside looking in, and I'm not very community involved where I am because the kids are all over the place, so I don't do a lot where I live. But from the outside looking into Pembrokeshire, it sounds like there's a lot going on, a lot of opportunities there for if you are feeling isolated or just feeling like you want to change and need something to do, you have that opportunity there to seek support to find what's right for you. And I think that's the key, isn't it, really? Finding what's right for you, because you've got to kiss a lot of frogs sometimes before you find the right one. But if you've got somebody to guide you, the journey's a little bit easier, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love that. Tammy.
Apart from echoing what Hayley says, and I do like the kind of like analogy of the frog there. It's just that, you know, social prescribing is positive. It's the benefits for health, for well-being are huge, and I'm if I can get to the event on the 19th, I will next week.
Sophie, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about the connectors, about how people can find those services, about the positive impact and that upward spiral that I mentioned earlier about being involved with a community intervention. And again, just to reiterate, this isn't replacing medicine for those that require medicine, but it's a part of a holistic package of looking after our whole selves and not just individual ailments. I'm a pro supporter of alternative community initiatives. I run a choir. I've been part of writing groups in the past. I've held choirs for people affected by cancer, Parkinson's, and providing that space for people to come where they feel comfortable themselves and that they're getting what they need to fill themselves up is something that's really important. And we're so fortunate here, as you mentioned, that the gratitude that we should have for those people that put these groups on and actually give so that other people can benefit from their skills and be a link in that upward spiral is just incredible. So it's fantastic. So thank you for all the work that you do at PAVS and all the team of the connectors at PAVS and Community Hub. And if someone's listening or watching this now and they think, oh, well, how do I find out more about this? Direct them to the website and that phone number again.
Yeah, so it's the Pembrokeshire Community Hub on 01437 723 660. And the website is pembrokeshirecommunityhub.org.uk. And before I finish, I just want to give a massive shout out to all the community connectors at PAVS. So Joe, Julie, Mia, Nia, Mandy, Rachel, Sarah, and Kath. And thank you for all the fantastic work that they do for us in Pembrokeshire.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you. And the website it's great because it's got a full directory. You can search on it and it'll find things in your area and different activities and they're tagged and it's so well curated. Sophie, thank you so much for joining us this evening at Healthy Minds, Better Lives. And we look forward to seeing your name pop up on the comments in future shows. We'll have to get you back on and you'll have to let us know how that speed dating event goes on the 19th next week.
Oh, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. We're going to take another moment here as we do approach 10:30 very shortly. But myself, Hayley and Tammy will be back and looking at some of those interventions and maybe even casting an eye forward to next month already. And of course, we've also got a conversation that we had on the breakfast show this week. In fact, it's Glaucoma Awareness Week, and we were joined by Andy Britton from Specsavers. So if you want to find out more about glaucoma, we've got that coming up at the end of the show. In the meantime, Mumford & Sons and Rushmere keeps you company until we'll be back very shortly here on Pure West Radio. And just going to put this on the screen for Sophie before we go. Helen McDermott, well done, Sophie. First time on Healthy Minds, Better Lives. Thank you so much for joining us here on Pure West Radio.
Don't you miss the breathless